Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down the 2024 Memorial Tournament. It is the annual tournament on the PGA Tour that is hosted by Jack Nicklaus at one of his finest designs, Muirfield Village. This is a PGA Tour signature event this year, so we have got an elite level field at a really nice golf course. And on this episode, we're going to go over, we're going to break the whole event down for you. And we're going to look at the course itself, look at the golfers that are playing in this event, and tell you who you need to be looking at in terms of your betting cards and DFS lineups. Now, I did a little bit of a special episode last night. If you are a one and done player, go check out last night's episode. What we did was we decided to break down all of the next three tournaments for one and done purposes, the Memorial, the US Open, and the Travelers Championship, because those three events are all big money events, with it being two signature events and a major. And so they are pivotal if you want to win your one and done season this year. So if you're playing one and done, go check that video out. There's a lot of good information. I got into a lot of detail on who I think are good course fits for those three events, who I think make for good one and done picks for those three events, and what I think a lot of the field is going to do in one and done for those three events. So a lot of detail on that one. So we're not going to have a one and done discussion here tonight, but we are still going to break down the course, the golfers playing it, and how that plays into DFS and betting this week. All right, so does it for the introduction. If you have not already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 500 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for us, and we can only get there if people like you hit that subscribe button. If you are listening on audio, you can still go subscribe on YouTube, but also you can subscribe to the audio feed as well. And while you're at it, go ahead and rate and review the podcast. It helps me out a ton, helps the podcast show up in searches. And same deal on YouTube. When you hit the like button, it shows me so much support, and I really do appreciate it so much. You guys can never understand. So let's go ahead and end the introduction there. Let's go ahead and start talking about Muirfield Village. All right, so Muirfield Village, as previously mentioned, is considered Jack Nicklaus's masterpiece. This is a beautiful golf course in Jack Nicklaus's home state of Ohio. It was designed by Jack himself, and this is one of the longer running tournaments on the PGA Tour. Basically, the moral of the story with this place is Jack Nicklaus wanted to create environment like the Masters in his own state of Ohio. And so what you get is just this gorgeous golf course where the architecture is great, the conditions are great, and the event just really delivers year in and year out. And that's why you get a lot of the best fields here year in and year out. Even before this was a signature event, this was one of the best fields that you would see yearly on the PGA Tour. Anyway, Muirfield Village is a par 72, measures out at about 7,600 yards. On the scorecard, this place has a lot of long par fours and a lot of long par threes. This is a big boy golf course. This is a long track, one of the longest tracks that the PGA Tour is going to play all year long. And there are 4 par 5s here. So it is a par 72, much like Augusta National. And so those holes are kind of really like the only respite in this layout. Like those 4 holes, the 4 par 5s, are the only 4 where the field played below par last season here at this tournament. So you're really going to have to score on those par 5s, and you're really going to be doing good just to make par on all of those other holes. Now, with this being a signature event, this is a slightly different field than what we usually see. First off, the best golfers on the PGA Tour have shown up here in Muirfield Village. But with it being a signature event, there are only 72 players in the field, and this is one of 3 signature events, the other 2 being the Arnold Palmer Invitational and the Genesis Invitational, that is going to feature a cut after Friday. The top 50 end ties, or anybody who is not within 10 shots of the lead, is going to get cut. So you might end up getting, 5 people cut. You might end up getting 20 people cut. We don't really know how many are going to get cut, but if you're playing DFS, you're going to want to get a 6 of 6 through. If you're playing one and done, you're going to want to make sure your guy makes the cut. But there is a small possibility that your guy could end up getting cut. Now, in terms of the course itself, Muirfield Village, much like Augusta National, there's a lot of similarities to Augusta in this place, y'all. Much like Augusta National, this place is fairly generous off the tee. The fairways themselves are actually decently wide. These are not what I would consider to be narrow fairways. And really, there's not a whole lot of big-time hazards off the tee except for the thick rough. The rough here is going to be super penal. It is much like your stereotypical US Open rough, where the guys always show up on Monday and they drop the ball in the rough and they see it disappear. Yeah, you can do that here at this course. This is a course that is going to feature supremely thick rough. You do not want to be in it. However, because of how long this course is, the driver is still going to be the club of choice off the tee for most guys on most holes, simply because you want to advance the ball as far as possible. Even if it means you're going to end up in the rough a few times, you want to advance it. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be in that rough. So I really think that this week, instead of looking at just strokes gained off the tee or just driving distance or just driving accuracy, total driving is a stat that I'm going to look at this week, as well as good drive percentage, because I want guys who are not only hitting it a long way, but also keeping it in the fairway and giving themselves a chance to hit the green, which, by the way, is no easy task on this golf course. Muirfield Village is, to me, the stereotypical second shot golf course. This is a course that's going to have a lot of long iron shots into very small, very firm, very fast, very undulating greens. The approach shots at this course are quite difficult. And so the guys who are going to be able to separate themselves at this tournament are going to be the guys who are going to be able to separate themselves with their approach shot. Off the tee, if you can just keep it in the fairway, give yourself a decent shot in, you're going to have a chance to separate yourself with your irons, which is exactly what a lot of guys at the leaderboards did here last year. Now, if you miss those greens, which you are going to here at this course, super thick rough and bunkers surround the greens. This is not like Augusta National in that there are not a whole lot of mowed down short grass chipping areas. If you're missing this green, sit down in thick rough, and that's what you're going to be chipping from to get back on the green, or you're going to be in the bunker. Now, the greens themselves, in addition to being very small, firm, and fast, they're also very pure bent grass. They're also very straightforward bent grass. And what I mean by that is you're going to be able to stand over a putt this week and have a pretty good idea of what the line is and have a pretty good idea of what the speed is. What you see is what you get, and they roll pure. So what you end up having happen at this event is guys who are normally bad putters, maybe because they get unlucky or maybe because they're bad green readers or for whatever reason, bad putters seem to be neutralized, but good putters can also spike. And so that's when you kind of see, like last year, Denny McCarthy gained 11 strokes putting at this tournament because he was basically just putting it on the green in regulation and holding every putt because he is one of the best putters in the world. And if you let him see what he's putting against, he's going to be able to knock it in. But at the same time, poor putters are also having that same advantage. So this course really does tend to neutralize putting quite a bit. And what it's going to promote is guys who have a complete tee to green game and then are going to be able to put it in with the putter. That's going to be what you're looking for this week. So my key stats this week for Muirfield Village are as follows. I think the number one supreme stat this week is going to be strokes gained approach. I also want to look at greens in regulation gained or greens in regulation percentage. If you have the ability to filter out for long courses or difficult courses in that regard, I think you should do so as well, because basically what you want this week is you want to have guys who can hit a lot of greens when everybody else isn't. Because at the end of the day, if you're able to hit more greens than everybody else, you're probably going to end up winning this week. Off the tee, I'm looking at total driving and good drive percentage. I already mentioned that statistic that I'm looking at. If you're looking at strokes gained around the green, I do think it is going to matter this week because greens will be missed this week. But I want to prioritize what guys are able to do from thick rough. And so I want to look at other courses or filter out conditions where guys are able to gain strokes around the green from thick rough. I also want to look at strokes gained putting on bent grass greens like these are the pure bent grass that they are. And also I'm heavily prioritizing comp course performance. If you play well at long courses, difficult courses, long and difficult courses or courses of this archetype, that's going to be what I'm going to be prioritizing this week. So my comp courses this week for Muirfield Village are Augusta National, as we already mentioned, BMW Championship courses, so like Olympia Fields, like Caves Valley, like Wilmington Country Club, just looking at places that are long, sometimes difficult, bent grass greens. The BMW Championship tends to be hosted in an area of the country that's pretty close to this. And so there's a lot of courses there that are pretty comp to this one. Like when you look at the BMW Championship historically, Patrick Cantlay's won it twice. Patrick Cantlay's won twice here. Victor Hovland won it last year. Victor Hovland won at Muirfield Village last year. Bryson DeChambeau has a great history at BMW Championships and has won at Muirfield Village. So I do think that those are some natural comps. But I think the best comp is Valhalla, what we saw 2 weeks ago at the PGA Championship. It's another course that is long. It should have played more difficult than it did, but it got very soft. But it's also features small greens, also features a lot of long iron play, also features a lot of thick rough around the greens. So performance at Valhalla is going to be a big indicator of success here this week. All right, so those are my key stats. So now let's go ahead and dive down the rabbit hole and see who fits it. So if you have been with us for a while this PGA Tour season, you know that when I say the rabbit hole, I'm referring to the tool from BetSpertsGolf.com called the rabbit hole that features a ton of stats. It's one of the best database sites that I have found, and you can filter by a lot of different conditions, a lot of different, different type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Filters, I guess, that you can sort by and filter and just you can dive into the data here in the rabbit hole. I really wish I'd worded that better, but you guys get the picture. So anyway, with what we're looking at this week from the rabbit hole, the first thing that we said we were going to look at is strokes gained approach. So over the last 16 rounds, the best approach players in the field have been Corey Connors first, shockingly Scotty Scheffler not number one, Xander Schauffele number two, followed by Scheffler at three, Sepp Straka and Siwoo Kim rounding out the top five, Tony Finau, Rory McIlroy, Seamus Power, Ludwig Oberg, and Tom Hoge rounding out the top 10. I also wanted to look at strokes gained at long and difficult golf courses from the last 3 years, I believe I did this stat from. And the top 10 in that category is Scheffler, McIlroy, Schauffele, Fitzpatrick, Homa, Hovland, Zalatoris, Fleetwood, Matsuyama, and Connors, with Cameron Young somehow tying for 10th with Corey Connors as well. Next, I wanted to look at strokes gained total at pretty much every course that has a high missed fairway penalty. This is actually strokes gained off the tee, not strokes gained total, by the way. So the guys who rank the best in strokes gained off the tee in that category are Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Victor Hovland, Xander Schauffele, and Tommy Fleetwood. Then if we look at total driving from the calendar year 2024, Scotty Scheffler finds his way back to the top with Ludwig Oberg, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, and Cameron Young rounding out the top five. Shockingly, Jordan Spieth, number 6, followed by Tommy Fleetwood, Akshay Bhatia tying for 7th place, and then Siwoo Kim and Corey Connors tying for 9th, with Matt Fitzpatrick, Harris English, and Chris Kirk just on the outside looking in. That's why I like total driving as a stat, y'all. You don't necessarily get a list of bombers, but just a bunch of guys who can have the right combination of distance and keeping it in the fairway. Next up, I wanted to look at approach on courses that feature small greens because I do think that is going to be an important stat this week. And the top 5 in that category are Scheffler, Schauffele, Finau, Thomas, and McIlroy, kind of a who's who of good approach players there, followed by Morikawa, Henley, Lowry, Hovland, and Connors rounding out the top 10. I also wanted to look at just scrambling from thick rough because, like I said, I do think that is going to matter here this week. And the best players in the field at that particular skill set are Russell Henley, Brendan Todd, Peter Malnati, Steven Yeager, Christian Bezadenhout, Max Homa, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Now, I also want to look at strokes gained putting on bent grass greens, but what I even wanted to look at more so relative to that was who elevates their baseline, who elevates their putting rank when you sort from all greens to bent grass greens. So Denny McCarthy is number 1 on both all greens and bent grass greens. But the rest of the top 5 are all big gainers when you go from all greens to filter it to bent grass. The rest of that top 5 is Oberg, Horschel, Dietrich, and Hughes. Justin Rose is number 6. He is also a big gainer on bent grass greens. Xander Schauffele ranks 7th on bent grass, but 4th overall. So, top 10 in both categories for Xander, certainly not going to criticize that. Victor Hovland is a guy who gains a lot on bent grass greens. He comes in 8th, with JT Poston and Keegan Bradley following suit in that regard and finishing 9th. 10th. Now, what's really interesting is that the guys that raise their baseline the most on bent grass, Cameron Young has a huge jump. Kim has a huge jump. Seamus Power, Colin Morikawa, Cam Davis, Lucas Glover, and Corey Connors all feature a huge jump. Whereas the likes of Will Zalatoris, Tony Finau, they're not so good at particularly either type of green. In fact, some guys that have big drops are Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark, Eric Cole, Brendan Todd, Jordan Spieth has a pretty big drop. Peter Malnati has a pretty big drop. Andrew Putnam has a fairly sizable drop. And I believe that's all I would characterize as having a pretty big drop. Syed Theegala takes a pretty big hit as well. So those are some guys whose strokes gain putting increase and decrease on bent grass greens. Next, I wanted to just look at strokes gain total at just, the different types of courses that I think you could compare this one to. So at Jack Nicklaus courses, the top 5 guys in the field are Scheffler, Cantlay, Morikawa, McIlroy, and Schauffele. When you go by just long difficult bent grass courses. The top 5 are Scheffler, Schauffele, McIlroy, Hovland, and Zalatoris. Pretty similar list there, for being honest. And then when you go to my list of comp courses and filter and load all those in, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Collin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, and Shane Lowry come in as the top 5. Max Homa actually tied for 5th with Shane Lowry. My bad on omitting that one. With Rory McIlroy, Victor Hovland, Lee Hodges, and Justin Rose rounding out the top 10. I also wanted to look at both birdie or better and bogey avoidance on difficult golf courses, because you are going to have to make some birdies this week and you are going to have to avoid some bogeys this week. Ironically, Scotty Scheffler placed first in both categories. The rest of the top 5 in birdie or better are Wyndham Clark, Rory McIlroy, Cameron Young, and Ben An. In bogey avoidance, we already said that first is Scotty Scheffler, followed by Xander Schauffele, Alex Noren, Ludwig Oberg, and Tommy Fleetwood. Now, when you compile all that together in a model, it should come as absolutely zero surprise who my number 1 golfer is. Have you guessed it yet? It's Scotty Scheffler. That, like I said, that should surprise nobody. He's the best golfer on the planet. He's at the absolute peak of his powers. He is like approaching prime Tiger Woods territory with how good he's been playing. And I think that Memorial is a great course for him personally. And so I'm not surprised to see him come in at first overall in my model. The rest of the top 10 is Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, Collin Morikawa, Ludwig Oberg, Victor Hovland, Russell Henley. That's the kind of the surprise here. He's the lowest priced golfer on DraftKings in my top 10. Max Homa at 8, Hideki Matsuyama at 9, and Corey Connors at 10. The first 7K golfer that shows up is Keegan Bradley at 12, followed by Shane Lowry at 14 and Tony Finau at 16. The first 6K golfer that shows up is Justin Rose at 19, with Chris Kirk and Thomas Dietrich and Austin Eckroat being the next 3, all ranked around 30th. So interesting list, but this is just the Monday version of my model. So what I do every week is I actually continue tinkering with and, just making changes to this model. And I do share the top 10 for my model every single week to my Patreon page, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. In fact, if you want access to the top 10 in that model, you will get full access to that, as well as my DFS core for both DraftKings and FanDuel, and a full write-up on both of those cores every Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, head on over to the Patreon and you'll get access to all those golf tools, as well as all of our best ball and season-long tools for NFL and college football, which we do have available and are working on more. And then also, once the regular season rolls around, I will do the same weekly course for NFL, college football, and then daily for college basketball. So if you want to get in early on all that, go ahead and head on over to the Patreon now, get the golf content, get the best ball content, and the season-long rankings, and then you'll be there for all the DFS stuff when the season starts. All right, so that does it for everything we got to talk about with the course. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the board and see who we like this week. So to nobody's surprise, Scotty Scheffler is the top golfer on the board on DraftKings, as well as FanDuel, as well as pretty much every sports book. He is the odds-on favorite to win this golf tournament. Now, what's interesting is he's actually substantially more expensive on FanDuel as he is on DraftKings. At FanDuel, he's up at $14,000, which is the most I have seen a guy priced at on FanDuel, like excluding the Tour Championship where you have the starting strokes. So very interested to see how much they bumped him up. And I think that, honestly, it's warranted. Like, he has been that good. He has been that dominant. So I understand why they did it. On DraftKings, he kind of seems inexpensive at $12,500. But then when you scroll down to the bottom, they're back to the 6K minimum this week, as opposed to the 5K minimum that they've had for a lot of recent weeks for full field events. So it really does create an interesting strategy discussion when it comes to Scotty Scheffler, because what has been the prevailing strategy at elevated events is stars and scrubs has been the move. Like, just playing 2 of the top guys, getting those right, and then just hoping to hit on the remaining value plays, because there's not that many of them. Some of them are going to have to be somewhat close to the top of the leaderboard. That's been the prevailing strategy that's worked in elevated events. But this week, it's supremely difficult to do so because of the 6K minimum salary, and because I think the bottom of the field this week is quite bad. And with there being a cut, I don't really want to play one of the 20 guys that's just going to get cut after Friday. So to me, this is a very interesting week from a strategy perspective from DFS. Is, do you continue with the tried and true method of stars and scrubs at elevated events, or do you try to think a little bit outside the box, or go a little bit more balanced, or, just any kind of different build, right? Like, it's going to be interesting to see what people do this week. Now, in terms of betting, I will probably not be betting this tournament outright unless I have an each way. And the reason why is because I think there's a substantial chance that Scotty Scheffler wins this golf tournament. And I think that betting a guy at 3.5 to 1 is long-term not really a sustainable betting strategy. So I'm not going to be betting Scotty outright to win, but I think I'm going to take some shots at some guys longer on the board that I do think have a good chance at winning, but I'm going to have an each way on them. So that way, if Scotty does boat race the field, I can still get paid out even if they come in second or third place. Last week, I had an each way on Ryan Fox that was looking really good on Saturday, and even at times on Sunday was looking good, and he didn't come through for me. So I'm hoping to get it back this week. I did have some top 10s and some top 20 parlays hit last week. That's been my productive betting strategy throughout the 2024 year is in an event like this, go to a book that allows you to parlay top 10s or top 20s, put Scheffler in, put McIlroy or Schauffele in, whichever one you like, and then find somebody that you like further down the board, and you're going to get pretty good odds on it. And if you piece together 2 or 3 of those and you get one right, you're going to have a profitable week. So I really think that that's going to be what I do more of this week is kind of mixing and matching on different sites where I like the odds for different guys and piecing together some top 10 and top 20 parlays that way. Now, let's go ahead and talk about it from a perspective. What do we like about Scotty this week? Well, what we like about Scheffler, the fact that he's been the best golfer in the world in the 2024 season. And this particularly sets up as a great course for him. Looking at his player profile page on the rabbit hole on BetSperts Golf, which is new, they've added this feature. I love it. You can see that he raises his baseline putting on bent grass. He raises his baseline to his general play in difficult conditions. He raises his baseline in strong fields. He raises his baseline in very long courses. So like he checks off just all the boxes here this week. And oh, by the way, last year he played at this tournament and gained over 12 strokes to the field. And that was while losing over 8 strokes putting. Yeah, so he would have gained 20 strokes to the field if he was a neutral putter, and he would have boat raced Victor and Denny, who were in a playoff here last year. He came in third, losing 8 strokes putting. I don't think he's going to lose 8 strokes putting again this year, and so I do think that this is a perfect spot for Scotty. I think he's a virtual lock to finish top 5. I hate using the word lock, but if there ever is one, Scotty to finish top 5 feels pretty like a sure thing this week. Now, last week, Rory McIlroy ended up being in the optimal lineup as the top price player at the RBC Canadian Open. Had a great weekend. Him and Tom Kim were paired together both rounds and both just lit it up. It appeared to be a very comfortable pairing with the two of them. I do think that Rory is a solid choice this week. His course history here is a little bit mixed. Like, it's just not what you would expect out of Rory McIlroy. Xander Schauffele is kind of what you would expect out of Xander Schauffele in terms of course history. He has pretty much finished between 11th and 20th every time he has showed up to this place, but this is also the best form that Xander has come in at to the Memorial Tournament, just coming off of a major and a runner-up finish at Wells Fargo, as well as top 10s at the Masters and the Players. So I do think that this is a better spot for Xander than Rory, and I think that in DFS, I think ownership is going to reflect that. I think a ton of people are going to play Scheffler. I think a ton of people are going to play Schauffele, and I think that McIlroy is going to be the forgotten guy. I really do. I think Rory's going to come in super low owned this week. Now, with stars and scrubs being the prevailing strategy, what I think a lot of people are going to try to do this week is to pair Scotty Scheffler with one of the next little tier down the board between Hovland, Morikawa, Oberg, and Cantlay. Let's go ahead and talk about those guys real quick. So I expect Morikawa and Hovland to be super popular. Both of these guys have wins at this course. Like Victor, the defending champ, Morikawa winning at the Workday in 2020. Both have wins at other Nicklaus golf courses. Collin Morikawa winning at the Concession. Victor Hovland, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know he does have one. Maybe I'm just thinking of his win at my comp course, which was Olympia Fields. I'll have to look it back up, but he has a win at one of my comp courses for sure. Both played super well at the PGA Championship. Both were in the final 2 pairings of that tournament. Both played really well, and that's one of my best comp courses this week. And both of them have looked good, like in their last start, right? Like Victor's last start was that PGA Championship where he came in 3rd place. And Victor's approach playing around the green play had been pretty bad in 2022, but he really picked it up at the PGA Championship. Morikawa finishing 4th at the PGA, also finishing 4th at the Charles Schwab. His approach play has just been great in those last 2 events. To me, those two just check a lot of boxes. Morikawa, interestingly enough, was top 5 at this event last year, but withdrew before the final round, which is something that you never see. So both of those guys, I think they're just supreme course fits. They're great plays. And like I said, I think a lot of people are going to pair Scheffler with one of those 2 guys and then look for some value plays down the board. Oberg and Cantlay, I expect to be lower owned. Ludwig has the injury concerns with, him being questionable at the PGA Championship after withdrawing from Wells Fargo and then missing the cut and just generally looking bad at that event. I don't know, I would like to see it from him before I play him. But if there were ever a dream course for him, this is the place for it. Like, he's a really long, really accurate driver of the golf ball. He's been good at difficult golf courses in his career. So he was great at Augusta. I think this is a pretty good spot for Ludwig, but the injury really has me nervous. Patrick Cantlay, his recent form really has me nervous. It's been quite bad. Like, the only courses that he's played well at this year are the Genesis and the RBC Heritage, which are courses that he always plays well at. But get this, though. If you're talking about a course that Patrick Cantlay always plays well at, that would be Muirfield Village. He owns 2 wins at this course. He is the best player in the field at Muirfield Village over the last decade. And just, I'm talking like this is elite course horse levels Cantlay at Muirfield Village. Like, we're talking Rory at Quail Hollow. We're talking Spieth at Colonial. We're talking John Rahm at Torrey Pines. Patrick Cantlay at the Memorial Tournament is in that level of course history. So if he is able to cash in on that, that would make Cantlay a great play this week. But his recent form definitely has a little bit of concerns. I am going to be still in on Justin Thomas, if I'm being honest. I think that I think that he's out of his slump that he was in last year. I think that this is a pretty good spot for him. You remember me mentioning that Workday Charity Open that Colin Morikawa won at this course? Well, Justin Thomas was the runner-up at that, lost in a playoff. But what I really like is that ever since the Masters, his tee to green play has been excellent, gaining like almost a stroke per round in every single event. And the PGA Championship, gaining over 3 strokes per round in that event and giving back almost 1 of it per round with the putter. If he's just able to putt like just not terribly, he's got the off the tee game, he's got the approach game, he's got the around the green game. He checks off all 3 of those boxes. And if he can just tread water with the putter, this could be a great Justin Thomas course. And so I'm still in on Justin Thomas this week, and I think he's going to be kind of low owned. Really, after that, there's 4 guys in a row that I'm out on. I'm out on Fleetwood. If you want a guy who's going to come in 17th place, he's the guy for you. He's never played at this course. He really kind of was a letdown on Sunday at the RBC Canadian Open. I just think he's destined to come in like 19th place. Hideki Matsuyama historically is like the worst week before a major players ever. I think this course is a great fit, and he really does up his game at difficult golf courses. But like the week before a major, he's just tuning up. He's not actually trying to win the event. His history shows that. Like, seriously, if you think I'm lying, go look it up what he's done the week before majors in his career. It's not pretty. And so I'm out on Hideki for that reason. Wyndham Clark is like, he has the ceiling to win this event, but he's been playing bad, man. Like, it's just been really bad with Wyndham Clark. And so I'm genuinely concerned about that recent form. I don't know if he's going to be able to right the ship. Bent grass is by far his worst putting surface. He really has not been good on approach in the last month and a half. Ever since the Players' Championship, he has not been good on approach and has not been good around the green. The putter has been hit or miss, and just like, I don't know, man. Like Wyndham's game is elite driving and elite putting, and I think that this is a course that neutralizes both of those in favor of approach play and around the green play. So I'm kind of out on Wyndham Clark. I'm also kind of out on Sahith Theegala as well. He was a really big disappointment when he missed the cut at the RBC Canadian Open. I had him in like all the lineups. The thing is with him, though, is that in DFS, he's going to be supremely low owned because of that. And like, I find myself like telling myself this every week, like, maybe at the end of the day, you just need to play the guys that are low owned. Golf is such a random sport that anything can happen. And no matter how good we think of a course fit a guy is, he can still go out and miss 4 or 5 foot putts and miss the cut. Like, maybe just play the guy who's going to be supremely low owned. And I do think that tier that I just mentioned that I'm out on, by the way, Fleetwood, Matsuyama, Clark, Theegala, I don't think they're going to be very highly owned at all. The reason why I think it's going to be very easy for people to put Scotty and then one of the big dogs as their next guy in, or they'll do Scotty and then they'll go all the way down to like the mid to low 8s as the next guy. So speaking of those mid to low 8s, I don't think anyone's going to be on Homer Spieth. And both of them have been in the top 5 at this tournament in their last trip. So if you're going to play a low-owned guy, I would rather play those two as opposed to the guys right above them. I do think that Connors and Ann are going to garner a lot of ownership, though. Both are just supreme ball strikers who are really hitting the ball really well lately. Both are awful putters, which we said putting is going to be kind of neutralized at this event. Benny Hahn has a runner-up at this event. So I really do think that both these guys are going to be really, really popular this week. I think that Hahn is a really sneaky one-and-done play because, like I said, in terms of lineup construction, it's real easy to just go Scotty and then put your next guy in as Connors or on, and then you can really have like a flexible rest of your lineup. So I really do think that those two guys are going to be very popular this week. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick breather there, and then we're going to talk about some value. So if you were going to make the case for a balanced build on DraftKings this week, I think there's a lot of ammunition there to do so for that. Like I said, I think it's very natural that if you click in Scotty, I think you're either going to want to go up top and go like stars and scrubs, or you can go down to this mid-tier range. And I think this mid-tier range is so juicy. Starting off with Matt Fitzpatrick, who kind of more so than anybody in the field really ups his game at long and difficult golf courses. And Matt Fitzpatrick is a guy that, like, some golfers, you kind of just play them while they're hot. Matt Fitzpatrick is a guy that can get hot out of nowhere and just kind of randomly pops up every now and then and plays super well. And when you look at his game, he ups it in difficult conditions. He ups it in strong fields. He ups it at long courses. Like, those are some boxes that I want to check this week. And like I said, if he's going to randomly pop, why not randomly pop this week? And I hope that he ends up going under-owned because of the recent form and because he hasn't really been all that great. But when you look at his history at this event, he's got 2 missed cuts, but he also has 2 top 10 finishes. So Matt Fitzpatrick, a lot of good with the bad, but I think he's a very natural fit in Scotty Scheffler lineups as like a second or third guy in. Now, after him, you have Russell Henley, who has been just one of the best approach players on tour this year. And he just continues to rack up solid finishes, and he's going to be the guy that I go to for reason. I think this is going to be another solid finish for Henley. I'm probably going to be full fading Sungjae Im because of the range that he's in, and I think he is by far the worst fit for this course and the worst approach player in this group. And so, I don't know, I don't think anybody's going to play Sungjae. So if you're looking to get a guy in the 8K range that's super low owned, there you go. There's your guy. But the upper 7K range, I think, is absolutely stacked. It has guys that I play literally all the freaking time. And so I'm going to be playing them this week when they're cheaper than they've ever been. And that's Tony Finau, Shane Lowry, Tim, Siwoo Kim, Will Zalatoris. All of these guys, except for Tom Kim, all fit a relatively similar archetype, and that is they are great tee to green players who show up at difficult golf courses and can't putt. And so at a course that de-emphasizes putting and emphasizes approach play in around the green play, of which all of them are good at, then who's to say one of those guys can't just be neutral or slightly above average with the putter this week and have the upside to win this thing? So, I really do like that whole range. Tom Kim is the one that breaks the archetype, but Tom Kim can get scorching hot with the putter, which he did over the weekend at the RBC Canadian Open, which he's done at Wyndham, which he's done at Shriners, which he did at Royal Liverpool last year. So Tom Kim is a guy that can just get scorching hot and find a bunch of fairways, find a bunch of greens. And so he's like the reverse of that archetype. But I would lump him in here in this group. And this is a group of guys that I'm really going to have a lot of exposure to in my lineups. Who is stopping anybody from just starting with Xander and then going Finau, Lowry, Siwoo, Zalatoris, and then you have 8,100 remaining, right? That's a pretty comfortable build if Will Zalatoris is your cheapest golfer in. So below Will Zalatoris, there are a few guys that I like, one of which is Billy Horschel. He has won at this tournament. He won it in 2022. He is a supreme putter on bent grass, and he's a guy that is just going to kind of stay on script. If he can stay on script, he's going to be pretty good. And what I mean by that is keep the ball in the fairway, of which he's pretty good at, keep the ball on the green regulation, of which he's pretty good at, and just kind of, just stay on script, make enough putts to win the thing with the putter, right? And he's been elite with the putter on bent grass. You look at what he's done recently since the PGA Tour has kind of gone to bent grass golf courses. He was great putting at the PGA Championship, gaining almost 8 strokes in that tournament, and then gained almost 4 strokes putting at the Charles Schwab Challenge. Was good on approach in both of those events as well. So Billy Horschel is going to be another guy that I get to this week. Tom Hoge is going to be a guy that I'm fading. Largely because I feel like a lot of the community is on Tom Hoge because of what he's done in terms of play recently, but he hasn't really turned it into anything just because the rest of his game isn't really all that well rounded. So Tom Hoge is probably going to be a fade for me this week, as are Harman, Bezadenhout, and Griffin, and Steven Yeager. I just think they're all 4 guys who play their best at short courses and or birdie fests. So I'll just cross some guys off like that out of my player pool. I'd rather have guys who play well at long and difficult golf courses. And a guy that I'm really excited about this week, though, a guy who's going to make some of my lineups this week, is Ricky Fowler. And you might be shocked to hear me say that, but he's really turned it around since his poor start to 2024. Bent grass is his best putting surface by far. Very difficult golf courses and very long golf courses are his jam because he has played well at major championships in the last year and a half. But also his ball striking has been really good lately. It wasn't that great at the PGA or the Wells Fargo, but at the Charles Schwab, he gained almost 8 strokes for the tournament ball striking. That's more than he had at the Rocket Mortgage last year, which he won. Well, not more than he had. It's very close to what he had, though, with Rocket Mortgage when he won. So if Ricky Fowler is going to strike the ball like that, we know he's a good putter on bent grass. We know he does not fear strong fields or difficult golf courses. Ricky Fowler is a guy that I am going to be going to this week, and I hope and pray that nobody else goes to him and I get him at super low ownership. Thomas Dietrich and Taylor Moore are kind of like twin plays in the 6K range. They're both guys who don't really pop as great statistical approach players or even around the green players, but they can be really good off the tee. They can be really good with the putter, and they both played really well at the PGA Championship at Valhalla. I kind of think I'm going to get a little bit of exposure to both of them just because they do have that ability to pop with the putter, but the fact that their approach play is not great does concern me. You're going to need that approach play to be great. If I had to pick one of them, I would probably be picking Thomas Dietrich. He tends to up his game a little bit more at long golf courses than Taylor Moore. Speaking of up their game at long golf courses, Taylor Pendrith is a guy who does that. However, the ones that he tends to pop at are of the long and easy variety. A guy that I really like this week, though, is going to be Austin Eckroat. He's going to be one of my favorite plays this week in the 6K range. He is a guy who owns a win at a Jack Nicklaus golf course now. He won the Honda Classic earlier this year. And even when he hasn't played well, the approach play has kind of been there. And even if the approach play is not there, with the exception of the miscut at the Charles Schwab Challenge, he's been a pretty good around the green player and a pretty good putter. And so he just has multiple outs, in my opinion, to play well at this tournament. And when you look last year, he finished 30th in this tournament last year, which was an elite field, and he was a much worse player back then than I think he is right now. So I really do like Austin Eckroat. I hope that he's not going to be one of the popular value plays, even though I fear that he will be. 2 guys that I'm pretty confident are going to be popular value plays are Adam Schenk and Lee Hodges. Adam Schenk was a top 10 here at this tournament last year, was great in the bent grass summer stretch last year. That's kind of his best putting surface. So I do think Schenk is going to be popular. Lee Hodges is the guy I like a lot, but every golf content creator that I've watched or listened to so far this week has mentioned Lee Hodges because he plays well at long and difficult golf courses. He plays very well at Jack Nicklaus golf courses. He was T12 at this event last year. He was T12 at the PGA. He was T12 at the Charles Schwab Challenge. He just checks all the boxes. I'm afraid he's going to be the 6K chalk, which usually does not pay off when a guy is that highly owned by a lot. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see on Tuesday and Wednesday places that do projected ownership where they end up having him. But I do think he is going to be the chalk of the 6K range. Interestingly enough, Davis Thompson, Cam Davis, Seamus Power, and Brendan Todd, they all qualified for the U.S. Open today. It would not shock me to see any of them not play in this event now that they've qualified for the U.S. Open. But it'll also be interesting to see if, they had to play well to win their qualifier. So maybe they could carry on that good play into a good showing here this week. If I were to play one of them, it would probably be Seamus Power. And that is probably because his approach play is the best out of the group. He hasn't been able to really piece it together with the rest of his game, but he can be a putter. He is a guy who keeps it in play off the tee. And so I do think that there's a little bit of upside for Seamus Power. He probably would be the lowest priced golfer that I would end up getting to this week. Actually, I might take a few shots at Jake Knapp. I'm kind of a believer in the talent. He's a great driver of the golf ball. He played well at a Nicklaus course early in the year at the Cognizant Classic. This course is a little bit more forgiving off the tee than some, but he can get really wild with that driver. So the fairways here are wide, but they're not that wide. So maybe might take a shot at Jake Knapp, but probably other than that, I think that Seamus Power would be the guy that I would go farthest down the board to go get. All right, so that does it for this episode. And that does it for our preview of the Memorial Tournament 2024. Hopefully was able to give you guys plenty of ability to pick some winners this week, pick a good DFS lineup this week. Hopefully was able to give you guys all the information that you need to do that. But that's all we got for this week, guys. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button to the channel. That way you can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season. That way you can, be with us for all of our NFL, college football, college basketball, and best ball content as well. And if you like what you saw in this video, do me a big favor, hit the like button on YouTube, rate and review on audio if you can. I really do appreciate it. You guys are the best when you guys do that. All right, so that does it for this episode, guys. Like I said, hopefully I was able to help you guys find some winners. Really looking forward to watching this week. Really, really looking forward to Pinehurst next week. That's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of content for that. So make sure you come back for that. Subscribe to the channel so that way you can. But other than that, y'all, best of luck to you this week here at the Memorial Tournament. Enjoy watching some golf this week. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this, and I will see you.